Little Miss Neat was a very tidy person, probably the tidiest person in the world. She lived in Two Pin Cottage. It was called Two Pin Cottage because she kept it as neat as two pins. She just couldn't stand a mess. She spent all day, every day, polishing and dusting and cleaning and making sure that everything was in their proper place. One morning, little Miss Neat woke up in her bedroom at Two Pin Cottage. She looked out of her bedroom window. It had been raining during the night and there was a puddle in the middle of her garden path. "Oh!" she gasped in horror, and rushed outside with a dust rag. She mopped up every drop of the puddle, and then she rushed inside and washed the dust rag, and then she ironed the dust rag, and then she folded the dust rag, and then she placed the dust rag back neatly in the drawer. Everything in Two Pin Cottage had its proper place. Now, this is a story about the time little Miss Neat went on a vacation. She always went away for a week every summer, and this year was no different. She spent 2 weeks packing, and then she spent a whole day polishing her suitcase, and then off she went, leaving Two Pin Cottage all spick and span and neat and tidy. "Oh, I hope it doesn't get too dusty while I'm away," she thought as she closed the door behind her. But something worse than getting dusty was going to happen at Two Pin Cottage. Would you like to know what? Mr. Muddle came to visit. He'd written to Miss Neat to tell her, but being Mr. Muddle, he somehow got into a muddle mailing the letter. Actually, what happened was when Mr. Muddle went to mail the letter, he had a letter in one hand and a half-eaten sandwich in the other. And can you guess what happened? Can't you? That's right, he mailed the sandwich, a mailed cheese sandwich. "It'll be nice seeing Miss Neat again," he chuckled to himself as he walked home. "The sandwich is a bit chewy," he thought. It was the day after Miss Neat left that Mr. Muddle arrived. He walked up the garden path at Two Pin Cottage and knocked the door. No reply. "Goodbye," he shouted. It should have been hello, but he isn't called Mr. Muddle for nothing. "Anybody home?" he called. He pushed open the door. Oh dear, he thought as he looked around. Nobody home. Never mind, he thought. I'll make myself a cup of tea and wait for Miss Neat. So he went into the kitchen at Two Pin Cottage, made himself a cup of tea and waited. And waited, and waited, and waited, and went home. Little Miss Neat stepped out of the taxi outside Two Pin Cottage. "That was a lovely vacation," she said, paying the taxi driver, "but it's nice to be home." She walked up the garden path and went through the door. "Not too dusty," she said, looking to herself. "I think I'll make myself a nice cup of tea before I start unpacking." But making tea after Mr. Muddle visit isn't quite as easy as it sounds. Little Miss Neat eventually found the teapot, not in its proper place, in the refrigerator. And she eventually found the milk, not in its proper place, in the teapot, and the tea in the sugar bowl, and the sugar in the milk bottle, and the cup in the oven, and the saucer in the bread box. How could she find a teaspoon? She could not. The telephone rang. Little Miss Neat picked it up. "Hello," she said. At the other end was Mr. Muddle. Suddenly realized he was holding the phone the wrong way. He turned it around the right way. "Goodbye," he said. "Who's this?" asked Miss Neat. "It's you," replied Mr. Muddle. Miss Neat thought, "It's Mr. Muddle, isn't it?" she guessed. "Yes," he replied, getting it right for once. "And you paid me a visit while I was away on vacation, didn't you?" she guessed again. "Yes," Mr. Muddle replied again. "May I come and see you now that you're back?" "I suppose so," sighed Miss Neat. "Goodbye." "Hello," said Mr. Muddle, and put the phone down. Little Miss Neat sighed a heavy sigh and sat down in the armchair next to the telephone. Ouch! She looked underneath the cushion. There were all her teaspoons and knives and forks. I don't think little Miss Neat will be taking a vacation next year. Do you?